There's a quiet assumption many outsiders carry that Amish women never compare themselves to modern women, that because we live separately, dress plainly, and avoid most media, the feeling of jealousy simply never takes root. That belief is gentler than the truth. My name is Eliza, and I grew up in an Old Order Amish community in Pennsylvania. I lived there into my 20s before I chose to leave a few years ago. I still speak carefully when I talk about my upbringing because it shaped me in ways that are both steadying and complicated. When I reflect on jealousy, especially toward modern women, I don't feel anger rise in me. I feel something quieter, something more layered than most people expect. From the outside, it might look like Amish women wouldn't have much reason to feel jealous. Our lives are structured around faith, family, and community. We wear the same style of dress. We marry within the church. We don't scroll through images of celebrities or influencers. The Ordnung, our unwritten code of conduct, creates a kind of visual and social uniformity meant to protect humility, and in many ways it does, but separation doesn't erase awareness. Even as a girl, I knew modern women existed. We saw English, that's what we called non-Amish people, whenever we went into town to sell baked goods, buy fabric, or visit the doctor. We noticed hairstyles, painted nails, the cut of jeans, the way women carried themselves with a kind of casual independence that felt foreign to us. I remember one particular afternoon when I was about 16. My mother and I had taken a buggy into a nearby town to deliver quilts. While she spoke with the shop owner, I stood near the front window waiting. A group of young women walked past outside, laughing loudly, iced coffees in their hands. One of them wore a bright yellow sundress that moved freely around her legs as she walked. I had never worn anything that moved like that. Our dresses were practical, heavy cotton, straight cut, meant for modesty and durability. Standing there, I felt a flicker inside me that I didn't yet have language for. It wasn't resentment. It wasn't longing exactly. It was curiosity wrapped around comparison. I remember looking down at my own dark blue dress, the apron tied firmly at my waist, the prayer covering pinned neatly to my hair. I wondered, just briefly, what it would feel like to walk the way she walked. Unpinned, uncovered, unobserved. The feeling passed quickly. It had to. In our community, comparison was gently but firmly discouraged, not through punishment, but through teaching. From a young age, we were reminded that pride grows where comparison lives. Jealousy, we were told, distracts the heart from gratitude. That belief exists for a reason. The Amish way of life depends on unity. When everyone dresses similarly, works similarly, and lives within the same moral boundaries, it reduces competition. It keeps attention on service rather than self-expression. The Ordnung isn't only about restriction, it's about protecting communal harmony. And many women feel genuine peace inside that structure. I want to say that clearly. I knew women, my aunts, neighbors, my own mother, who didn't look at modern women with envy at all. They saw their lives as spiritually risky, overly individualistic, even burdensome. From their perspective, the simplicity of Amish life was a safeguard, not a limitation. But peace isn't identical for everyone. Jealousy, when it appeared, rarely showed itself openly. It surfaced in quieter forms, in moments of exposure to the outside world, in private reflections, sometimes even in jokes that carried more truth than humor. One Sunday afternoon after church, a group of us young women were gathered in a barn quilting. It was winter, and the doors were shut tight against the cold. Someone had brought a catalog that had accidentally been tucked into a fabric shipment. Not something we were meant to keep, but it made its way into our circle anyway. We sat around the quilt frame, flipping through glossy pages filled with modern clothing. No one said, "I wish I could wear that." That wouldn't have been proper, but there were small comments. "She must be cold dressed like that. Imagine trying to work in those shoes. Her hair would take all morning." We laughed, but the laughter had edges. I remember one girl, Miriam, running her finger lightly over a picture of a woman wearing a tailored coat. She didn't speak for a long moment. Then she said quietly, "It must feel nice to choose." That word stayed with me. Choose. In Amish life, many choices are made collectively or spiritually guided. Marriage, work roles, clothing, technology use, all flow through church expectations. The trade-off is belonging. You surrender individual choice to gain communal certainty. For some women, that exchange feels sacred. For others, it can feel heavy. Jealousy, when it came, wasn't always about beauty or fashion. Often it centered on autonomy, the visible freedom modern women had to move through the world differently. I felt that most strongly in my early 20s. By then, many of my peers were married. I was helping run my family's produce stand and teaching younger children in the community school. One summer day, a car pulled up driven by a woman not much older than me. She stepped out wearing business clothes, modest by modern standards, but structured in a way that signaled authority. She spoke confidently, negotiated prices, checked produce quality with practiced ease. After she left, I remember standing behind the stand, watching the dust settle where her car had been. I didn't want her life exactly, but I wondered what it felt like to direct your own day without first considering church approval. I wondered what it felt like to earn money that was personally yours. That wondering carried a quiet ache I didn't name at the time. Community pressure worked subtly in moments like these, not through confrontation, but through redirection. If a young woman spoke too admiringly about modern lifestyles, older women might gently remind her of the dangers: divorce, vanity, spiritual drift, family fragmentation. Sermons sometimes reinforced this contrast, describing the outside world as restless and morally unstable. The message wasn't cruel, it was protective. But it also shaped how jealousy was processed, not expressed outwardly, but folded inward, examined privately, often prayed over. Emotionally, that inward folding can have mixed effects. On one hand, it builds resilience. You learn to regulate desire, to find contentment in what you have. On the other hand, unspoken comparison can create quiet shame, the feeling that even wondering about another life signals spiritual weakness. I carried that tension for years. There were days I felt deeply grateful for the rhythm of Amish womanhood, the cooperation, the shared labor, the way women supported each other through childbirth, illness, harvest seasons. Modern life, from our vantage point, looked isolating in comparison. Jealousy and gratitude existed side by side. Leaving the community complicated those feelings further. When I first entered the modern world, I had the freedom I'd once observed from a distance. I could choose my clothes, my work, my schedule. And yet, I also saw the pressures modern women carried: body image expectations, career stress, social comparison amplified by technology. It softened my earlier envy. What had looked like effortless freedom often came with invisible weight. There's one area, though, where jealousy, or maybe longing, deserves deeper reflection: appearance and self-perception. Growing up Amish, mirrors were functional, not focal. We dressed for modesty, durability, and uniformity. Beauty existed, but it wasn't emphasized individually. Compliments were rare and usually redirected toward character rather than looks. When I left and began navigating modern spaces, I became aware of how much attention women gave, and were given, regarding appearance. I remember standing in a department store dressing room for the first time trying on clothes I had chosen myself. The mirror showed me shapes and lines I'd never considered before. For a moment, I felt excitement. Then I felt grief. Not because I had been deprived, but because I realized how little time Amish women are allowed to explore their own physical identity. There is humility in that restraint, a spiritual intention I still respect, but there is also a loss of self-expression some women never get to examine, let alone choose. That realization didn't make me angry at my upbringing. It made me more compassionate toward the women still inside it, because jealousy, when it arises, isn't usually about wanting someone else's life wholesale. It's about noticing specific freedoms and wondering what they might feel like in your own hands. I want to end gently, because this topic deserves balance. Do Amish women ever feel jealous of modern women? Yes, some do, in quiet, passing ways, but many also feel relief that they are not navigating the pressures modern women face. They value the clarity of defined roles, the depth of community reliance, the spiritual grounding that comes from living within a shared moral framework. Jealousy, when it appears, rarely dominates. It flickers, teaches, humbles, then often dissolves back into gratitude. When I look back now, I don't judge those feelings in my younger self. They were part of being human inside a structured world, moments of curiosity pressing gently against the boundaries of faith and culture. I still carry respect for the women who remain, living lives of devotion that outsiders often misunderstand, and I carry understanding for those who, like me, felt a pull to experience a different kind of womanhood. If you've ever lived between two worlds, belonging fully to neither, you learn that comparison loses its sharpness over time. It softens into perspective, and perspective, I found, is far kinder than jealousy ever was.